Hi, welcome to the video. We're going to be reading something sad, I hope. I hope this is sad. Okay. So the story's called No More Undertale by Aninny Mouse 42. ANINNYMOUS 42. USE 42. Whoops. It's based on the genocides that the AUs and stuff went through, I think. So, it's papyrus sadness, so here we go. You're only gonna see this screen anyway. Like, you're only just gonna see this screen. I'm not showing you this. I'm not gonna show you this story, but yeah, you're only seeing this screen, so. Somewhere, sometime, on a grassy hill, a skeleton lies on a blanket. Beside him lies his brother, close enough to feel his warmth of his magic. They're looking at the stars, spanning the sky in a beautiful array of colors. It's a sight that never could have been imagined from their old home. Somewhere, sometime else entirely, a skeleton stands in a golden hall. He's alone, his brother long gone, a coldness where there should have been life. He's standing as a last resort, the only thing between an echo of a child and the end of the world. Between them a battle rages, repeating again, like a broken record. Never has the grassy hill and starry sky seemed so far away. And still, elsewhere, elsewhen, the skeleton lies sleeping, dreaming, head filled with pictures of things that have already not yet happened. The sunset, painting the horizon red as blood that pools on the floor, mixing with dust. Dust is so thick that it could look like snow. With that ribbon of red through it like the scarf that was never left behind, not even in the rush above the world. The surface where dreams of fragments of images of fringes of sleep. Dreams come true. It's a beautiful day outside. Papyrus sat up in the bed, instantly awake. That is how it usually was. He'd always been quick to start in the morning, not like Sans, who had practically been dragged out of bed. Yes, mornings were one of Papyrus's many and widely varied specialties. Problem was, it wasn't morning. Well, it was, technically, but Papyrus was a bit suddenly wide awake at, according to his bedside clock, 2 a.m. He didn't usually get up until 6, which was still 4 hours away. Which didn't make sense. Papyrus should have slept rather soundly until then. Which made his soul race, because if he was awake now, then something must have woken him up. Although the great Papyrus was entirely fearless, there were some things that still scare him, the dark, and the things in the dark were part of that very, very small selection. But there could be any manner of beasts roaming about in the dark. There could be one out right there, right now, in his house. The thought made Papyrus shudder a little, in turn making his bones rattle as they knock against each other. He sat up, scrunched his knees to his chest, and pulled the blanket up to his chin. He had stayed there, quiet. He had stayed there. He just had to stay here, stay quiet, and he would be safe. But then, an even scarier thought occurred to him. If there was a beast in his house, it could hurt Sans. Papyrus was strong, and however scared, the thought of a faceless, nameless beast scared him. He could stand to take a few hits. Sans, on the other hand, couldn't survive one. And more than the dark, that terrified Papyrus. Terrified him so much that it spurred him into action despite the dark. He tossed aside the bed sheets and leaped to his bedroom door. There he paused because, well, it might be sitting right there outside his door waiting for him. Papyrus was active sort, sure, but he was the caution sort, too. It wouldn't do for him to be hurt before his rescue Sans mission even began properly. So carefully, Papyrus opened his door, and hazarded a peek out. There was nothing there, so he So slowly, cautiously, he stepped into the hallway, still spying nothing of the hostile sort. He hurried downstairs to check whatever had woken him. But there was nothing. For a moment, Papyrus simply stood in the living room, magic fairly bursting at his palms, ready to summon a moment notice. What had wakened him up? Maybe the perpetrator was already outside. With that, the tall skeleton rushed to the door to pursue the beast. Yet, he flung the door open and stepped into the snow. He saw no creature of malignant intent. There was a slight snowfall still dusting over the tracks he had left in the snow coming in that night. But other than that, there were no prints indicating a foul beast escaping the premises in awful ways. The lights of the snow town glowed cheerfully, hinting that nobody was amiss. So Papyrus quietly stepped back inside and closed the door behind him. What had woken him up? The question remained, sitting like a lump in his throat. What is it? It would be. That is, it would be if he had a throat. As it was, he had a mildly unpleasant sensation emitting from about where a throat would be if he had one. Something had woken him. He had figured out what. What if it's in Sans room already? The question exploded in his head, and without moments of hesitation, he took off running to his brother's room, because whatever had woken him was already in Sans' room. It could be hurting Sans, and in a few short bounds, Papyrus was up the stairs, flinging open the door of his brother's room. And finally, Papyrus saw that which awoken him. He saw that he had, in fact, been right. Admittedly, a beast wasn't a physical one, but one in the form of a nightmare, but still a beast all the same. Sans was thrashing about on his bare mattress, muttering under his breath sorts of panicked tone. Papyrus stepped into the room and sat down on the edge of Sans' mattress, carefully to stay out of the way of Sans' flailing limbs. Papyrus knew that when Sans was asleep, the only time he ever fought harder was when things got more difficult. That was why Sans' mattress was bare, and sometimes he had gotten tangled up in his bedsheets during a nightmare. And the more he got tangled up, the more he struggled, and, well, in the morning, Papyrus has to spend a good hour trying to figure out how to fix Sans' dislocated shoulder without causing him more distress, as he was still on the edge of after a nightmare. Among Papyrus's great and many skills, however, was the ability to calm Sans down, no matter what situation. For example, this particular situation required that, due to the amount of limb flailing to which Sans was committing himself, Papyrus merely stay seated on the edge of the mattress and not to grab his brother in a tight hug just yet. Instead, he elected to merely reach out a hand to settle it on Sans' back, a light gesture to inform his brother that he was there. Safe, friendly presence amid the chaos of Sans' dream. This had near immediate effect of stopping Sans' limb flailing. Sans also muttered something about being there forever, but Papyrus could not quite make it out. He seemed pretty calm, though, so after a little bit of waiting to make sure he actually was calm and not about to start thrashing around again, Papyrus carefully slipped his arms around his brother's small frame and lifted Sans up. At this time, Sans jerked in surprise and choked on a sort of choked gasp noise escaping his mouth. He muttered something, maybe surprise, maybe protest, maybe something else entirely, but his words were too slurred with sleep for Papyrus to understand. From there, it was merely a matter of settling Sans into his lap, easily accomplished. Papyrus cradled Sans' head against his shoulder, wrapping his brother in a tight hug. Sans shifted a bit, still mumbling. One eye socket cracked open for a barest second and then slid back shut as he began to wake up. Sans doubted that Sans was really awake enough yet to really be registering and understand what he was seeing. He gave his brother a small, warm smile anyways. Sans let out a sort of choked, garbled groan. One hand pressed against his rib and reached out for Papyrus' scarf. Papyrus hugged Sans a little tighter. "It's all right, brother. I'm here." Sans let out another straggled noise, still struggling to wake up. "I'm gonna kill." He shifted a bit more. His sleepy mumbles became a bit more coherent, and approached lucidity. Papyrus and Jean, want anything? Despite the fact that Sans was clearly still struggling to skate off the nightmare and in need of comforting, Papyrus scowled at him. No, absolutely not. You are most certainly not going to Groupies, and not at this hour, and definitely not in your current state. Finally, Sans twisted to look at Papyrus, blinked sleepily, actually awake for a long moment. He looked at Papyrus. His expression was stoically unreadable. But Papyrus were to guess, it'd say that he would say it was very much close to breaking down sobbing. It took a minute, but Sans did eventually respond to Papyrus to bury his face against Papyrus's chest and murmur out a quiet, okay. Wasn't exactly what Papyrus had been suspecting, though, which led Papyrus to believe Sans' nightmare must have been the worse than the usual ones. So Papyrus let out a small sigh and gave Sans another squeeze, resolving this to sit with his brother as long as he needed to be there. And that's it for part 1. We only listened to like 10 minutes of that track. Oh my god. So yeah, it is Papyrus Angst. It's like sad shit. I'll read part 2 soon. But right now, I just don't feel good, so have like a great day and subscribe, like, I don't know, do whatever you want. I recommend you listen to the soundtrack. It's the soundtrack that plays whenever Sans is talking to you about Flowey. It's a really great soundtrack. The story again is from Wattpad. No More from Undertale by Anini Mouse 42. Have a great day. Bye.